Good morning. Sitting here in the offices of Wounded Leadership Ministries and the Center for Biblical Counseling, and this is a video I've been wanting to make for some time, and still learning how to make these videos and getting comfortable with the whole process. But I wanted to share an experience that I had recently. I was flying back from Houston. I think it was Houston I was flying back from at this particular trip, but as you normally do, you've got 2 or 3 hours on a plane. I like to watch some of the movies. Sometimes that's the only time I get to watch a movie. But there was this movie called Bow Artist at War. And if you don't like spoilers, then you might not want to watch the rest of the video. But I tend to watch historical movies, things, especially movies based on true stories. And this particular movie is about, I think I'm saying this correctly, Joseph Bow, I think is the right first name. And he was a artist and a master forger, actually, and Jewish and caught up in the atrocities and the horrors of the concentration camps. And it's a story of his survival and a story of finding love within, even at the camp, and getting married. And it details not only his wife, but also his bride's life as he goes through these experiences and survives these atrocities and these horrible things, and the trauma and the suffering had taken place during this time. And of course, this video is not to give commentary about those things. But what I noticed is, I don't know how many of you, as you watch through the rest of the videos, I'm a credit watcher. I always watch all the way to the very end. And a lot of times in these movies that are made, stories that are based on true life, real life events, at the end of the movie, kind of through the credits or before the credits, they'll show pictures of the actual people during the time, and they'll have descriptions on the screen, kind of adding more to the story. And I'm always one of those that I watch and I read every one of those. But in the movie, Bao, his wife that they meet in the concentration camp and actually get married in the camp, she was a nurse prior to going to the concentration camps and everything. But in the camp, she became an esthetician. She was in charge of doing the nails and taking care of the commandant at the time. And don't want to spoil the movie for you, but they survived and they reunited. They got separated for a while in this beautiful reuniting. But at the end, one of the things that they shared was she never went back to nursing. She remained an esthetician, and she would invite those that have been through these traumas and been through these things into her home, really for the rest of her life. And she would do their hair and do their nails and do these things for them. But the caption at the end, one of the thing that caught me the most was, it said that she would, while experiencing, these things, doing their nails and things like that, she would encourage them to share their story. It made mention of the fact that they found healing and found life, really, in being able to share their stories of being wounded and surviving those things. And I don't mean to make a connection where there's not one, to compare what wounded leaders go through. That's not what I'm saying. Here's the connection that it made in my mind, is that something is atrocious as what they went through, that they were able to find healing and power in being able to share their stories. And it got me thinking, that's why we do what we do with the Wounded Leadership podcast, with sharing stories of healing and recovery, with encouraging people to find strength in their story. One of the things that happens with pastors, church leaders, ministry leaders, their families, when they go through something like this, is that it begins to be isolating. You're isolated from your family, your spiritual family, your economic connection, foundation is taken apart, and it's a very isolating phenomenon. And it can be very shaming. You find a lot of guilt in what you went through, even though things were done to you, the mobbing and all of these things. But I've found in my own experience, I've found with those who have shared their stories, that if we can work through the isolation of I'm the only one that this has happened to, or I'm somehow a bad pastor or a bad Christian leader because I couldn't navigate through this and these wounding this wounded happened to me. Or maybe it's just too painful and you don't want to face those things. But I found through my own experience and through the experience of those that we've worked with and helped during here at Wounded Leadership that there's power in telling your story. That if you can find that trusted person, maybe somebody that is similar experience or somebody that understands, that you can begin to share your story. You can begin to detail the hurt and the pain instead of just caging it within yourself. That you can find vulnerability in sharing your story. You can find power in sharing your story. And it's through embracing your story that you can find avenues of healing. If only to find out that you're not alone, you're not broken, you're not irreparable, you're not somehow necessarily a terrible leader. There might be some leadership lessons to learn, but it's not irreparably broken. So I share this connection. Again, I want to make sure that I don't make a connection where there's not one. I'm not trying to make a connection that what pastors go through is anywhere like what was experienced in history. But what I am saying is, can we find vulnerability? Can we find power in sharing our story with someone? If this resonates with you, get a hold of us here at Wounded Leadership Ministries at woundedleadership.com. There's a tab that tells your story. We're going to hopefully in the future be putting out some resources to help you work through your story. But at the very least, find somebody that you can sit down and talk with and prep them. Say, look, I don't need you to fix anything. I just need to talk. I need to just share my story and get it out of from within you and put it out there and find safety and vulnerability in sharing your story. There's such power in storytelling. That's what draws us to these movies, is because it's sharing stories of pain, sharing stories of suffering, but sharing stories of resilience and healing in the face of unbelievable odds. So I hope for you that you can find power in sharing your story, that you can find a healing in sharing your story, listening to the stories of others. I hope you will dive into Wounded Leadership Stories from the Wounded podcast. You can find that on our website or all the podcast platforms. So this is by no means a professional video, still learning how to do these things, but hey, I just wanted to throw it out there. I hope you can find power, safety, vulnerability, but mostly healing in sharing your story. Hope this helps you. We hope to put out some more just informal videos like this in the future. But until then, go to woundedleadership.com. Hope you can find some resources there to help you. And don't be afraid to share your story.